if we'd all stand for a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence afterwards. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If I could have roll call starting on my left.
Richard Lutz.
Mike Dolan.
John Grant.
Anthony Sutton.
Carl S. Moore.
Tom Nickel.
Tom Panzella.
Wish.
And I'm Scott Marlowe, and we're joined by David Sulkus, City Planner, and Phyllis Leggett, the Board Clerk. We have a quorum, and we'll be on to new business. So first item of business is Wheelers Farm Road, East Rutland Road, Zone DO25, petition of Milford Developers, LLC, for approval to construct a 180-unit multifamily rental apartment community on map 96, block 915, parcel 11C1, of which Wheelers Woods LLC is the owner. Do we have someone? Oh, hello.
How are you?
Good, thank you. If
Good
you
evening. Attorney Melinda Powell. The Commission will recall that I handled the appeal in this matter. The court asked us to have this item on the agenda to provide public notice to the community that the court will be holding a hearing on Friday morning at 10:30 in Hartford, as it states in the agenda. The purpose of that hearing is because, if the Commission will recall, on remand, the Commission considered the zone change and zoning map change. That request was denied. The applicant has decided not to pursue the appeal of that. So therefore, the project will just stand approved as it was without the zone change. And so the court needs to hear from the applicant that they are in fact withdrawing that portion of the appeal. So that's the only purpose of
Thank you.
the agenda item.
Mr. Sulkus, is there any comment? Is the board we have no action to take on this, correct?
No, you just heard the action, which is it's on your agenda, so you can move on to item number 2.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Item 2 is 7 Beach Avenue, Zone R-12.5, petition of Stephen Pepe for coastal management site plan review approval to construct a single-family residence on map 82, block 784, parcel 5, of which David Pepe is the owner. Is someone here to present for that, please? If you could
Yes,
state your name and...
My name is Stephen Pepe, 7 Beach Avenue. The owner of the property is my wife, Davida Shapiro.
Davida, I'm sorry.
Davida. So we have here the coastal site plan review. Basically, the project consists of...
Could you just raise the mic, or there you go. Thank you.
Okay. So the project consists of the demolition of the house that is currently on the property. The property is zoned as an R12.5. It's approximately 11,200 total square feet. It is located partially in a VE14 zone. The rest of the property is located in an X zone. So all of the building will be done in the X zone. And again, it'll be the demolition, and as per the plan, all the excavation will be done in that X zone area. Everything will be restored back to its original site, and I'm just here to answer any questions anybody might have.
Mr. Sulkus, do you have a
You
comment?
you should have a copy of the staff report. I'll just read a brief excerpt. The existing three-story house will be demolished and a new three-story house will be constructed outside of the VE14 flood zone limit. No increase to site grading is shown and no fill will be removed or delivered to the site. After construction, the disturbed area will be graded back to its pre-construction condition. The new residence will be constructed so it does not disturb, will not disturb coastal resources on or adjacent to the site. So the proposal complies with Section 512 of the zoning regulations.
Thank you. Is there questions from the board for the applicant or for Mr. Sulkus? Yes, Mr. Nichols.
Yeah, on your documentation here, I'm a little bit confused. Where two-story was crossed off, you went to three-story, and then later on in this document, you refer to a two-story. So what are we doing here?
It will be a three-story.
Okay, and your demolition, as far as I could see, is mostly done. The house is down except for the garage.
Correct.
Thank you.
Are there other questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, thank you. I'd entertain a motion from the board on this application. Yes, Mr. Quish.
Yes, I would move that we approve this as submitted.
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, oh, Mr. Nichols.
Yeah, I would like to have this approved, but based on the recommendations that the city engineer entailed in this piece of paper here. So I would recommend approval if in fact this is completed, based on the engineer's report.
Mr. Quish, would you amend your motion?
Sure.
And
I'll second.
you'll second the amended motion. So just if we could, we're going to approve this with, as long as the conditions from the city engineer are met. Is that the motion? Yes.
Question for the applicant.
Sure, go ahead.
Excuse me, sir. Is it going to be a problem for you to comply with the recommendations in the engineer's report? Is that going to be a substantial hardship, or is that something that you can
No,
do?
it should not be a problem.
Okay.
Most of that is already in the works.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion on the motion?
Just one other question. Who owns the driveway? I noticed on the city engineer's report that he's asking for an apron. Do you own that? Do you own that area?
Yes.
You do, okay.
Well, you have the, yeah, he's asking for an apron.
Right.
And he was talking about a sidewalk as well.
Right.
And a curb, which was not on the print.
Right. So that's no problem?
Right.
Okay, good.
If there's no other discussion, I'd ask for a vote in favor. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
This, the Calucci to add Calucci's, the bond return, get a motion from the board, approval.
You don't want to do that
Item
under...
C1, here.
Okay.
C3.
Okay, before we move on, under new business, I received a request by Tom Calucci for the return of his bond in the amount of $1,754.40 that was being held for 1 year in accordance with the approval of the Planning and Zoning Board at its meeting held January 5th, 2016. I'd like to have a motion to put this on the agenda. Mr. Quish, second. Mr. Sutton? Okay, so I've just read his request. We have, Chris Saley has responded and is in agreement with the release of this. Mr. Sulkus, do you have any comment on this?
Just by way of background, when we do get these requests, we forward them to the Public Works Director for his input, since they usually involve something related to Public Works, and he agrees that the bond should be released.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this, further discussion? All right, I'd look for a motion on this item to approve. Mr. Sutton? Mr. Quish, second. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is a public hearing for 335 Meadowside Road, petition of Warren K. Field Jr. for a public hearing with regard to a minor modification to a site plan under CGS 8-30G on map 21, block 213, parcel 31, of which 335 Meadowside LLC is the owner. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Nice to see you swapping seats with Mr. Sutton. Congratulations. Just for the record, my name is Thomas Lynch. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Lynch, Trimbicki, and Boynton. My office is located here in Milford at 63 Cherry Street, and I'm back here tonight basically with a continuation of the meeting that was held back on December 20th, representing 335 Meadowside LLC and its principals, Warren Field Jr. and Christopher Field, who are with me tonight. Also with me is Washington Cabezas, who was the site engineer who prepared the amended site plan that we presented to you back at the December meeting. And, you know, just to refresh where we left off, I'm not going to be supplementing the comments that I made that night too much. So one procedural matter, Mr. Chairman, I'd ask that the minutes and the verbatim comments that were made at the December 20th meeting be made and incorporated as part of the record for tonight's public hearing. So with that said, back in December, we did make a full presentation to you. Just to refresh your memory, my client received approval from this board back in 2015 to construct 15 units of multifamily housing on the site located at 335 Meadowside Road. The application was presented to you under the provisions of Section 830G of our Connecticut General Statutes, commonly referred to as the Connecticut Affordable Housing Act. And with the application that was presented to you at that time, there were two applications, in fact, an application for a special permit and an application for site plan approval. We presented to you a site plan that was prepared by I think it was Codispoti and Associates, and subsequent to the construction on site, there were some minor amendments that and when I use the word minor, we felt that they were minor. They're amendments to a site plan that traditionally are approved in-house administratively by the city planner. There was a movement of some electrical transformers. The final placement of the gas line that was originally shown on the site plan was moved to a different location, and that was per the guidance and actually the request of the Connecticut Gas Company. To supplement my comments to you that evening, I've asked Buddy to hand out to you. I had 5 copies, so if you can share looking at that. But what I brought with me tonight are the actual rules and regulations of the Southern Connecticut Gas Company, because there was some concern that the gas line was moved for some nefarious reason on behalf of my client. But in fact, it was placed where it is at the request of the gas company. They felt that that was the most efficient way to bring the gas service into the site from Meadowside Road. And I've given to you, and I'm asking that one of those copies be made part of the record. I've given to you the actual rules and regulations that have been promulgated by the Southern Connecticut Gas Company. And I've highlighted paragraph 2 under those regulations, which states, in the interest of public safety and public service and safety, the company reserves to itself the right to place in position all mains, service pipes, and connections from the street main up to and including the meter, and such mains, service pipes, and connections shall be maintained by and remain the property of the company. And flipping to the second page, I've highlighted the top of the second page, and this is really what comes into play here. The company reserves the right to determine the location of mains, service pipes, and meters, and such location of such mains, service pipes, and meters shall conform to the conditions of service appended to these rules and regulations as Appendix B. So clearly, when we come before you with a site plan, it shows a gas line, and quite often gas lines, sewer lines are moved in accordance with consultation with the water company or the excavation company, the water line coming in off of the street, and the gas line, because once the plans are approved, then the technicians come out from the gas company and they make the determination as to the most appropriate spot on the property for the gas line to come in from the street. So there was some discussion about that at last meeting. I brought this document with me tonight to basically buttress the argument that we made that the gas line was placed in the location where it is, as shown on the amended site plan, at the request of the gas company. So I think that that's something that needs to be addressed at the outset, and hopefully it puts to rest any concerns that arose from that. We also brought to you with the amended plans the fact that as an enhancement to the site, or as we felt, enhancement to the site, instead of asphalt pavement throughout the site, portions of the pavement in front of the units, my client installed pavers at greater expense. He did so because he wanted to make an improved aesthetic appearance on the site, and that was part of what we talked about in our conversation back in December. There was also a shortening of the sidewalks to add some plantings. We also amended the drainage plan in accordance with plans that were reviewed by our city engineer, Greg Podluski. If you recall, and hopefully you have as part of your packets, the report that was issued from Greg reviewing the amended site drainage plan. There was concern about possible water runoff leaving this site and traversing to the property to the east or the northeast of the site. In furtherance of that, we've brought Mr. Cabezas with us tonight, and my client is going to get up after I'm through to talk about a further discussion that we had after the December meeting with Greg to even enhance the drainage even more. So there's been a lot of talk in the media. We all read the article in the Milford Mirror and the concerns of the neighbor about drainage. We're going to talk further about that tonight, and we have come to you tonight with another amendment that we think is going to be even more beneficial to the neighbor in terms of preventing any water runoff onto his property. We also have another amendment to bring to you tonight. There was a discussion that a split rail fence that was located on the property along the boundary line between, again, the neighbor to the northeast and this site. We are going to install, at my client's expense, a solid vinyl fence to traverse the entire property line to create privacy between the two properties. Lastly, there was some discussion about the driveway apron that was installed at the end of the neighbor's property to the northeast. My client met with Chris Saley yesterday. They examined the apron. They discussed the fact that part of the apron was starting to settle. My client has a relationship with the excavator that basically warrants that that won't happen. And there was discussion with Buddy and Chris Saley yesterday to have that apron removed, reinstalled at a grade that'll make sure that any water from Meadowside Road will not back onto the apron and collect in that area. So I think if either you were here the night of the 20th, or if you read the minutes of the night of the 20th, we concluded our presentation, and there was discussion amongst yourselves as to having a public hearing so that public comment could be elicited. And we're back here tonight. We're happy to participate in that discussion. And as I said, as a more or less a preemptive strike, I've addressed two of the items that I think that the neighbors are most concerned about, the drainage and the privacy fence, and we are submitting to you that those are two further amendments. They can be conditions of any approval of this amended site plan application as you see fit. So with that said, I'm going to ask that Buddy get up and talk a little bit more about the drainage plan that he's designed, and if there's any technical information you need to elicit from Mr. Cabezas, he's here as well.
Thank you, Attorney
Thanks.
Lynch.
Thanks. Good evening. My name is Buddy Field. I'm a principal of 335 Meadowside LLC. I just wanted to hand these pictures out to you first so you can kind of get a perspective as to what's going out there. And then when I talk to you, you'll have maybe a little bit better grasp of it because you have something to look at. Be able to see what I'm looking at. These pictures pretty much are, can you hear me okay? Okay, these pictures pretty much here are just to give you a perspective as to what's going on out there. Okay, one of the major things that was said was that our property was draining extensively on this property. You can see by the pictures that this was the latest rainstorm we just had a few days ago, and you can see a majority of the water is coming from the neighbor's property in the back. So what I wanted to come here today is not he said, she said, it's coming from ours, isn't coming from ours, whatever it is. The pictures there show that it is coming from the neighbors. You can see also during the rainstorm, very little water, if any, is coming off from the embankment that we have on the property that abuts it. There's also a picture here that shows in the wintertime with the snow on the ground, and you can clearly see there's no ice, no water ponding, anything of that nature. One of the concerns of the neighbors, and you know, I could understand, I'd probably be in the same boat if I was them and the reversal, you know, it was a role reversal. You know, one of the board members, I believe last meeting, I'm not sure if it was Tom or Rich, but they said, well, why don't you try talking with the neighbors? I tried that in the beginning, and it really never progressed any further. And in the last 2 or 3 days, I thought to myself, and I said, you know what? I says, what I'd like to do is, right now, we came back before the board, and we added 3 drains between the buildings to take the, where we felt there would be ponding on the upper part. If you look on the last picture that I have there, it's pretty much, you could see it right down between the driveway and the buildings. And you can see up to the silt fence, everything tilts back to the buildings. So all the water from that silt fence back to the buildings goes back into our buildings. It does not go over to their property. Everything from the silt fence, and the silt fence is probably about anywhere from 6 inches to a foot off the line, and then from there it proceeds to the driveway. What I'd like to do is keep the topography exactly the way it is and not change it. And along the property line, whether it's on our whether it's exactly on the property line, and I would like to discuss this with Frank and Denise, because, you know, I'm going to live there for a while, and we all have to get along. It was made by some of the board members, and I thought about it, and I said, you know what, it's about time we put the tools away we're fighting each other with and try and get this thing solved. So what I'd like to do is either on our property, their property, or right on the property line, and I can discuss that with the neighbors, we're going to put a curtain drain. And a curtain drain is going to go all the way from the back corner of the property to all the way to the front corner of the property. It's about 360 feet, give or take. So basically, it's going to be about 1.5 foot trench that's stone with pipes in it that hooks to the overflow that's out in the street. So any water that's from our property, it's going to hit that curtain drain, and gonna go right into the drain and right out into the overflow into the street. It's not even gonna have a chance to even go on their property. To be honest with you, I don't know why we didn't think of that in the first place, but sometimes, you know, situations arise where it sets you off in a different direction. We originally had a swale, and I think the original engineers did that to save us money. Well, sometimes saving money isn't the best answer, and I'd rather, because we plan owning this project for a while, I'd rather do it right where everyone gets along. And I'd also like to keep the topography the same way it is, because the majority of the water up to the sill fence is going to go back to the buildings. And that's where I also wanted to place the fence, because from a driveway standpoint, that fence will no longer be a 6-foot fence. It'll probably be 8 or 9-foot fence in certain sections and a 7-foot fence in other sections, giving the neighbors the privacy that, you know, I'm willing to give them. But for that fence to be there, you know, we want to keep the topography the same the way it is. We're going to put the curtain drain in, and the curtain drain will prevent any water from going on to the neighbor's property whatsoever. And I think that's basically their biggest concern. They don't want water going on their property, and I can understand that, and that curtain drain, and I had the engineer here today to, you know, add the technical part of it. I've already talked to Greg Podlaski, the city engineer, about it today, and Greg was all for it. He says that's a fantastic idea. He says that's great. He says, you do know though, he says from a conceptual standpoint, I'm saying it's okay. He says, but you have to come in the design. I said, by all means. I said, I'm not going to do this on the back of a napkin. I said, it's all going to be designed. It's all going to be looked at, you know, by the city engineering department, and it's going to be discussed between the engineers who we hire and the city engineering department, and they basically give their stamp of approval. That's when the engineers go in there. Both sides are familiar with the site, from everything that's going on, and I feel it's a better answer to what we've had to deal with so far. I don't think the swale will address the situation as well as a curtain drain. A lot of you out here, you know, I'm sure you know what curtain drains are. They cost a lot more money to put in than a swale, but I know I'm not going to have any problems, and I know it's the correct thing to do. Also with the apron, I had not realized the apron was flaking off. It was brought to my attention, and I said, that's unacceptable to me. I already called my contractor. They're going to replace it, and Chris said, well, can we maybe change it a little bit? I says, Chris, I says, whatever is okay, I'll do. I says, as long as the city signs off on it, I says, I don't have a problem doing it. And that was it. As to a lot of the other changes that were aesthetically appeasing, previous in the past, when anything like that happened, we would go to the city planner, and as long as everything was better than what you were doing, it was okay. And there are many projects in Milford, some I've done, and a lot other people have done, where they've upgraded things, and it's always been administratively approved. So that was one of the reasons why I didn't come before the board and say, geez, I want to put pavers in. And one of the reasons I did that was once the site started getting built, it started taking, you know, hold of what's starting to look like. You know, on paper only goes so far in terms of aesthetics. When you're physically out there and you see things and you talk to the neighbors and you get feedback from them and you say, geez, what would that'd be a great idea. You know, and, you know, all the neighbors aren't against me on that project, because if they were, I wouldn't have Frank and Denise's letter they sent to all the neighbors. A few of the neighbors gave me the letters. They just said, I don't want to come tonight to talk because, you know, I still have to live in the neighborhood. I says, I know. I read the letter. I stopped for a second, and I put myself in their shoes, and I said, you know what? Let me come up with a better answer or a better idea where we can all get together. And that's where I came up with the curtain drain, with the fence. You know, I have to live in this town like everyone else. So I like to think, you know, I can meet people halfway. Does anyone have any questions to that?
Before we ask that, Mr. Sulkus, is there any comments?
Not at this time.
Is there questions, comments from the board? Yes, Mr. Nichols.
Yeah, where is this water ending up that's running down the driveway?
Well, the water coming from our property doesn't really flow off because you can see it. Now, whether we had built this project or not, that water would still be running down from, because you gotta realize, it's a 360-foot driveway that's 10 feet wide, that's impervious pavement. That's a lot of surface area for that water to collect. They also have a fully paved driveway up top, which is higher than our project. So all that water's gotta go somewhere. And it's going down their driveway. You can see it right there. It all goes to the right. And if my project wasn't there, that water's still gonna go there, and it's still gonna hit into the next door neighbors. And that usually is, you know, the responsibility of who's ever driver or homeowner that is. You know, even if I built that or not, that water's still be coming down. What I want to address is the water that's coming, or the possibility of the water is coming from our property onto their driveway. A curtain drain will stop it dead in its tracks and go right into the city storm system as to what it's designed to do.
I wasn't referring, I know what a curtain drain will do. I'm saying, where is this water running to that's coming down the driveway? Curtain drain is going to be on your property.
Right. Oh, it goes to the next door neighbor's property.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Is there other questions from board members?
Oh, I'm going to let the engineer speak.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Washington Cabezas, civil engineer and land surveyor. As Buddy was saying, he wants to install a curtain drain along the length of the property. And I believe we can do that very easily, and there's enough pitch to get from the 360-foot, rear all the way to Meadowside Road and tie into that overflow that you already installed. It's already there, so it'd be an easy connection to do. And just to be clear, can you guys hear me if I go over here?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Cush.
Are there leaders from the gutter system in the back of the buildings?
Yes,
Are you-
they're piped in the ground.
They're piped to where?
They're to the drainage system underneath the driveway.
In the back of the house?
No, underneath the driveway. But, yeah, the roof drains coming from the all buildings are piped in the ground, going toward the drainage in the driveway.
Is there any other question? Yes, Mr. Lutz.
Yes. Will this curtain drain require maintenance?
I'm sorry?
Will it require maintenance?
Maintenance, very little, because I mean, it's, we can, it's going to be the top sink stitches or so, we can be designed so that it's mixed with planting soil, or it could be just strictly stone. But technically, it's going to have, underneath the 6 inches, it's designed to have filter fabric around the pipe and the stone, so that no fine soils get in that stone and clog it up. So there's no maintenance needed there, technically.
If plants start growing in it?
If plants start growing in it, then at that point, yeah, you would have to basically just maybe reinstall some stone. But
Who will be responsible for that?
it'll be the site, the responsibility of the property owner. So
Property owners?
it'd be part of the overall drainage maintenance of the site.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions from the board, I'd like to move on to the public comment section for this. And before we do that, I'd like to just ask the public a couple things. One is, as you come forward, if you would state your name and address. And I would like to, to stick strictly to what's being presented right now for amendments for this project. So if we could start by that and ask if there's anyone in favor of the amendments to this project. Again, if there's anyone in favor. Okay, if there's anyone that is against the amendments that are being proposed to this project, if you could come forward and just state your name and address. Good evening. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Frank Janice. I am 331 Meadowside Road, the adjacent property to everything that's going on. I wanted to talk a little bit about the pictures I brought up to you. The first one that you see there is the original properties side by side. As you can all see, in the last one, and I thank Mr. Fields for coming up and saying that he will replace my apron, but in the last one, he had said that it's makeshift, that it was asphalt. As you can see, the town property has a sidewalk going all the way down, along with my concrete apron and everything else. There was never an issue on height, never an issue on water. That being said, we have had that all dug up to put drainage down from this property. The second page you'll see is the excavation permit that was taken out on December 15th. However, if you look up top, they came in and did that work and asked for it to be looked at. You also note there it says that it didn't look too good because it was done during the heavy rain. Again, I appreciate Mr. Fields coming up with this and taking care of it as he's saying that he will. So that's going to alleviate a lot of my talking for you. The next page was just a picture of the driveway itself after the last 6.5, 7 months that it's fallen apart. It is the only apron that is falling apart. And again, that was done in August. And so the following picture, Mr. Lynch, I kind of see it as a perception or deception. Our perception of what we see from what he tells us. This is my property. This picture was taken yesterday at the recommendation of Mayor Blake, his assistant, and Chris Seeley coming out to my property. That is the water rut that I have coming down from Mr. Fields' property right now. The elevation is roughly 3.5 feet to my property line. So the fact that they're saying that it does not have any runoff, that it's not on my property, that is completely false. That is towards the front of the property, towards the main street. The second page you'll notice is that green area in the back next to my house. That again, he's saying where my driveway is above his property, as you can see all those ruts of all the water coming down onto my property. All this water has been sitting in my property. During the winter, we had ice all at the bottom. He may have come out, he may have taken pictures at a great time to show you that there's nothing there. However, these pictures are yesterday, as I said, by Mayor Blake coming out. If you follow to the next page, you'll notice it shows, that's an older picture when it snowed. I took that picture to show you how all the water, the snow runoff and everything comes down from their property, again, which is way above mine, comes down on my driveway, and then runs down my driveway on that right-hand side. You asked where the water goes at the end of it. Well, that water goes down onto the grass alongside the new sidewalk they put in, and then crosses over the sidewalk. I've had the unfortunate privy of seeing kids who come from Jonathan Law High School walking home through there in the winter and slipping on the ice that goes across that sidewalk. We also have the issue farther up on their property, just past their driveway, where there's actually dirt coming off it, as well as water across the sidewalk, and I've also seen kids have problems there. I saw a kid on his bicycle slide on it. The next picture is just to show you the damage that's happened from the water coming down, sitting there on my driveway, which we would love to see our driveway back to the way it is. The following one is to show you two different things. They have mentioned now that the gas line is on their property. In the original plans, it was against their building. When this was put in, they thought they were on Mr. Field's property. It is on their property, but they worked on our property to do it. The next page will actually show you that, but before you go there, this picture also shows the elevation between my property line, that red stick, and their back of their house. The original plans show it as no more than a foot in elevation from my property line to their property, to the back of the building. As you can see, that's way above it. Next picture was taken when they had just finished doing the gas line. If you notice, there's a little yellow flag in the front on the left, and my property stick right next to it. As you look on it, there's one farther up on the left-hand side of the silt fence. That's also showing my property inside that silt fence. They dug up my property to put this gas line in. When they did so, they assumed they were on the Field's property. So how close it is didn't matter to them. I had talked to Joe Totro from Southern Connecticut Gas, as well as Mr. Fields did, because Joe told me he tried to get a paper saying exactly what the footage is. Southern Connecticut Gas states that it should be anywhere from 3 to 5 feet from new installation should be 3 to 5 feet from any existing property line, and they can show it within 18 inches on either side. The only way that could be changed is if the town gives a special authorization for it because of some type of hardship, where it's going to be if the houses are close together. But they're also going to need an easement from that neighbor, because if anything goes wrong with this, they have to dig up my property now, as well as his, to get to the main. We would like to see that main moved all over where it's supposed to be, because if anything happens, I don't want my property being dug up. The last picture is just showing how close that gas line is. At one point, it's about 6 inches. It's mere inches from our property. That being said, I'd also like to say Mr. Lynch has told you that some of this work has been done, such as the grading. It hasn't. Mr. Fields has told you that the swell is there. Well, it hasn't, and even his excavator, the person who came out and did his topography said that there was no swale there. All this runoff that they've been saying hasn't happened, has happened. There's a lot of things that they say has been done and haven't been done. It seems to me what they're doing is they're building it, putting it where they want, and then asking if they can do it later. Again, I appreciate the fact that Mr. Fields came up here, has addressed some of the issues. Some of the other issues we're worrying about is, I think it's great that they're going to put the privacy fence up. We all need that. But if you look at their trees and stuff on their plans, they're talking about 2-3 foot trees. We have 3-story homes with lights coming off the back. Mr. Fields, along with whoever else moves in next to him, their lights go right in our bedroom. Any noise from there which is, at this time isn't a lot, but eventually there'll be people over there, is going to be on us, as well as all the way down my driveway on my neighbors. We would like to see arborvitae's put in, something bigger, something around 10 to 12 feet. They grow 2 feet a year. It would be great to block off not only light, but sound from there, making it comfortable for all the neighbors, as well as privacy for them and for whoever's going to live there. I don't think this is too much to ask for. Also, I would like the fact that our driveway, that beginning part there, got damaged from the ice, I would like to see him take care of that too. As again, I just see it as a little bit of, perception of how they're saying it and what we're seeing. And the last thing is, they're talking about putting in a curtain drain. A curtain drain, as everyone knows, is about 1 foot, 2 feet, whatever. The freeze line is 32 inches. You can put this in, and even at that point, taking down the grade, it's not going to help all that much because it still will freeze in the winter. Water still will run. So I would like to see the grade being taken down to where it was supposed to be, no more than 1 foot higher from our property line to the back of their buildings. I would like to see our property that they worked on, as you saw that picture, back level the way it was before they started working there. I don't think these are too big of things to ask. Again, he's going to be living there like he said. We would love to have good neighbors. This, I believe, the fence and the trees for lighting, the buffering of sound and light would be great for everyone. It would show good neighbors for him, and it would help us to be better neighbors for him. The one other thing is we did, myself, a couple neighbors, Tom, John, we did get together after the meeting that you had, and we said, should we talk to them? And we all decided if they came and talked, we were going to be open to talk to them, see if we could get some, it figured out without a bunch of trouble. Nobody approached us. So I appreciate your time, and I hope to participate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak against the amendments?
My name is John Pagliano. I live at 325 Meadowside Road, right next door to this property that we're talking about. I'm a project manager for a construction company, and usually contractors, we don't pick on our own, and I won't do that to Mr. Fields. I will say there's a couple issues I have. I agree with what Frank was saying 100%. Mr. Fields mentioned he talked to the neighbors. That's the first time I've actually seen him. He's not talked to me, and I live next door to this property. And also, I'd like to say his nephew that's running this project is doing a fantastic job. He needs to get the credit. He's doing a great job. The building is beautiful. It really is beautiful. We're not happy that it's there, but it's there, and it looks nice. I see that they're making some changes, and they're trying to correct things. The curtain drain and that property being as high as it is, as Frank had mentioned, it is a problem. That water does run on my property too, but I will say, they want to make these corrections, and that's fine. I'm glad that Buddy came up with this, but I just kind of wish he did speak to some of the neighbors. Like I said, I haven't even spoke to him, although I have spoken to Chris, because he's been pretty up forward with everything. The other thing too is, if this room was all lawn and it rained, it would soak into the lawn. But if this room is all pavement, which is probably half the size of his parking lot, water doesn't go through the pavement. It's going to run down into the street. So that whole parking lot is a big parking lot. Now, I have a degree in mechanical engineering, and I've been with a construction company for 35 years. We've dealt with these problems, and I know he's trying to deal with these problems. But you got to remember, when you put a large parking lot like that in anywhere, the water's got to go somewhere. It's just common sense. It's gonna come down that driveway. I don't care what kind of curtain drains you put in, but it has to be dealt with, and he's gonna have to figure out a way to correct that. Like I said, they did a nice job building a place, and I give the credit to Chris because he's on top of everything. But it would have been nice if they had spoken to us like they said they did. It would have been nice to be included. And my other thing I want to say is, when you put a 8 or 10 foot privacy fence in, it's a 3-story building. The first floor is the garage. The privacy fence covers the garage. Now the first floor is now the second floor, and the second floor is now the third floor. That stares right into my property. So a 6 or an 8 foot arborvitae doesn't work for me. That fence is worthless to me. Okay, it'd be nice to have it there, but put some green giants in. I spoke to the guy that was doing his lawns and all his excavation. They had to dig up my sidewalk to put their drain in. They did a great job replacing it. They have to come back because they have to redo the lawn there because it's all weeds and it wasn't done properly, but they're going to do that. But I'd like to see them put some green giants in there. You know, something that's going to give us, you know, I'm 60 years old. You know, I don't want to wait 20 years for privacy. And by then, you're going to need to have privacy. You don't want to see me out in my yard. You know, but they need to put something more in the 6 foot arborvitae in there. Get some green giants. Get some 12, 15 footers. They grow 3 feet a year. You can still put the privacy fence up, but again, the privacy fence is only covering the garage. There's not even a window in the garage. Privacy against what? So I can not see their meters? You know, so it would be nice to have something higher there. You know, and that's, you know, again, I agree with everything Frank said too, but this is something that we've been talking about a long time. The other thing I recommend to the board, nothing against Buddy, but in my company, everything should be bonded. There should have been a total bond on this project. You shouldn't let any contractor do any more work in Milford unless they're bonded for this job. Then there wouldn't be any of these issues with money later on and where are we going to find it and what are we going to cut to fix things. I've been doing this a long time, longer than Buddy, so I know. But I thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak against the amendments proposed? Good evening.
Hi, good evening. I'm Gail Schlossberg. I live at 14 Honeysuckle Lane. I'm the state senator for this district. I'm not necessarily speaking for or against, but there weren't any categories for me, so I'm going to be just standing here. I just wanted to share my thoughts with you, but first I just wanted to say thank you very much to the members of this commission for serving and for also taking the opportunity to hear from the public. I know that sometimes, especially, I know I spend a lot of time listening to the public, and sometimes you just want to get to the work to be done, but it is really, really important. And sort of this dispute that's been going on with this development and in this neighborhood has been ongoing for a long time. So I just want to say thank you very much for hearing their concerns. I also wanted to say thank you to Buddy Field for coming forward and hearing the concerns and offering a number of what I would consider to be reasonable solutions to some of the problems that have been raised. There was the discussion about the privacy fence, and I know that that's something that will be helpful. The remediation of the driveway apron has been a concern. Drainage is obviously an ongoing concern, and I would just note that, just a reminder that when this plan was originally approved, it was approved with a different engineering company from the developer, and that development had a drainage plan with it that this commission said was good, was fine. But as it turns out, it hasn't been, and now the grading is substantially different than what was originally approved, and now hence the amendments, which, from what I understand, and I'm not an engineer, and actually an improvement in the drainage, but I leave it up to you and your expertise and the expertise of the engineers that you have at your disposal to ensure that, in fact, the drainage is adequate, because it has been a significant problem. I have visited this site no less than a dozen times over the last number of months, and I can tell you there's a significant amount of water that is running from 335 over onto the Genese's property. And it's better now that there's been some changes, but it's still certainly not adequate. So drainage is still a significant problem. One of the other areas, and I know it's not done yet, so I know that that's going to be coming. So one of the areas, though, that I think is really troubling, though, is this gas line placement. And so the original plan that you approved had the gas line placement right up along the back building wall, right along the back building, very far away from the property line. Now, I understand that Attorney Lynch brought you the rules and regulations of the Southern Connecticut Gas Company, but I will note what he didn't bring you. He didn't bring you a letter or anything from the Southern Connecticut Gas Company that says that this line was placed at the request of the gas company, because in fact, I spoke to the gas company and I asked them, how'd you end up with a line way over here? They said, well, we walked it and that's where we put it, and that was our understanding that that was fine. But it seems to me that there's a little bit of a disconnect between the plans that are approved and then what actually gets built. Because there is a perception in the public that when this commission of elected officials, elected representatives, votes on a plan, and it's got things in particular places, that that is what is actually going to get built. And so then when it doesn't get built, it causes a problem. So now the gas line is, in some spots, 6 inches from the next door neighbor's property. And in fact, I asked the gas company, what happens if there's a problem? They said, well, guess what? We're going to declare a public emergency. We're going to go on the property and do whatever we have to do. And that's just too bad for the neighbors. I'm not sure that's really what we want. Now it's there, so now we're going to have to figure out, or you're going to have to figure out how you want to handle that. But in fact, it was approved by this commission to be far away from the property line, and now it is right on the property line. And that's really a challenge. And I want to agree with the previous speaker who came up and talked about bonding. I think that's a really important piece of this puzzle, and a way for this commission to make sure that all developers, and this is not directed at Buddy or anybody else in particular, but we need to make sure that all developers and all of the people who are doing work in our communities are actually following the plans that you have taken so much time to figure out. This is what it should be happening, and this is the way it should be going. So I appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate Buddy's compromises here. I think there's still more work to be done in order to, make for good neighbors. But I think that with this hearing tonight, we are on the right path. So I thank you for that.
Thank you, Senator. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak against the proposed amendments? Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Steve Fisher. I live at 30 West Shore Drive, which is pretty much right alongside this development. I was under the understanding that this is for a minor amendment to this development. And no offense to anybody here, and just as Senator Schlossberg just said, to me, when you make an amendment, you do it before you do the work, not after. We're talking about a gas line. I have children, there's children in the neighborhood. I don't see how someone could just decide to move a gas line 6 inches away from the neighbor's property, which is about 8 feet away from my property, and then come to you guys and say, we've changed our plans, this is where the gas line is. It's got to be safety issues here. I mean, we're talking about gas. So that is my opinion. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to speak against the amendments? Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kim Rose. I live at 292 Naugatuck Avenue, and I am the state representative for this district. I'm just here to echo the sentiments of our good senator, Gail Schlossberg. I've sat in your seat, so I do understand how hard your job is, and I commend you and thank you, Commissioner Quish, and the rest of you for allowing our residents to have this opportunity. It's kind of an unusual hearing to come back for a public hearing on these type of issues. I would just like to say, if you could honor the request of perhaps some greenery, larger trees rather than just a fencing in the area, it'll help deaden the noise. I share the senator's sentiments as far as having bonding. That would have alleviated a lot of problems. The thing that did concern me listening to the public hearing tonight, As the senator said, you were presented with a set of plans. There were deviations from that plans. They weren't minor deviations. They went from moving a gas line up from a building to within inches of the neighbor's properties. Perhaps somewhere along the line you can get that pre-approved when an application first comes in from the utility company, so that we're assured that what you're presented is actually what you're voting on, and that's what's going to happen, or pretty close to it. That's about it. As I said, I hope you consider the residents' recommendations, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak against these amendments?
Hi.
Good evening.
Hi. Denise Doucette-Janice, Frank's wife, 331 Meadowside. I had a very long, well, it wasn't long, but quite a few things to say to all of you tonight. We've been through this it's been a long time that we've been going through this, through the development of this property. I do want to start out by thanking Buddy for coming up and offering those suggestions. A lot of this that we're coming to you with our concerns is because we've heard things from different people, right? So when we call the gas company, they say, the gas line needs to be, a minimum of 3 feet from the property line, and here we are, we're looking at our property and it's inches from the line. So what are we supposed to think about that? There's been no ongoing monitoring of what's going on there. It's been, my husband going down to planning and zoning, or, me writing letters, or we're talking to our representatives or our neighbors. And I think that's, ongoing. That's something that we need to think about as a city, is how we communicate with the neighbors, with our officials about what's going on with these sites. We're just lay people. I mean, I'm a nurse by trade, so I know absolutely nothing about zoning, nor do, it's, I know that it's a big concern, and we need to be, need to be really diligent about what we're doing. So I think that, whatever comes out of this, of course, I agree with everything that my neighbors and my husband and our representative and senator have said. I'd love to see, the privacy fence would be great. I think be a wonderful addition. I think it creates a boundary and, safety and privacy for everybody, including the new residents. I think trees would be great. We won't see up at them, they won't see down at us, and it will block, decrease some light pollution and some noise pollution along the way. Of course, our driveway and the curtain and all that stuff, I agree with all that. I just want to make sure that whatever comes of this, that it's monitored, that somebody comes out and helps us to make sure that it's what it's supposed to be, because we're just, we're kind of floundering trying to figure it out. So I would just ask for your help and support in that, to support the current residents and, we as taxpayers of the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak against this? Okay, seeing none, Attorney Lynch, would you like to respond to any of the comments that were made?
Yes, thank you. I will agree that the tone here tonight is a lot better than it has been at the other nights. And I think the way that we handled this was to come back with certain proposals. I don't know how far we would have gotten if we did all get together in my office or meet in a conference room somewhere, but I think that the efforts that Buddy has made in terms of providing for the fence, there's 2 engineers that we're submitting to you have reviewed this idea with the curtain drain, your city engineer and our engineer. So again, we're making a proposal that a curtain drain be installed along the boundary line, and that will, as we've stated for the record, solve the problem of the drainage. The gas line, I don't know how else to elaborate on that other than my initial comments that the gas line was placed there by the gas company. It's in there, it's there. There's really nothing that we can offer to you other than the fact that that was placed by the gas company. There was no deviation of intent from the site plan, and as I stated to you, in handling these applications so many times as I have over the years, utility plans are laid out and they're subject to final review and installation by the utility companies. So we conceptualize it on a site plan, but the alteration of that is administratively signed off, and it's determined by the utility company itself. So again, I have nothing else other than that to address that particular issue. But in terms of the fencing, in terms of the drainage, I think that we've gone a long way here to try to meet the concerns of the neighbors. We did present, as part of our site plan application originally, a landscape plan. There's additional plantings that are on there, but the type of plantings that the neighbors are talking about, the large arborvitaes, the distance between the building and the fence really is not wide enough to provide for that kind of plantings to go into that area. So with that, we ask that you approve the application that we've submitted to you, subject to final engineering review of any drainage plan by the city engineer. Yeah. Did you want? And there was one further comment that Mr. Cabezas wanted to make as well.
Thank you.
I just heard a couple of things about where the water was draining to that's existing on the site now. And this was already designed this way as far as where the impervious areas are draining to. See, all the roof areas and the impervious areas of the driveway they're all piped and pitched to drains right along the center of the driveway. So the water that's going over the easterly, northeasterly property line is, like I said, is along the back strip. And if the temperatures are below freezing, everything's going to be frozen. And that's just the way it works. But I just wanted to clarify that, and also I heard that, there was a previous design, engineering design, which there was. But what we did was we held all the computations and calculations from the previous design, so that the volume that was originally designed for the drainage on this site to be held on site was still the same or superseded, if that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Fields.
I just wanted to add one thing about the gas, because I deal with the gas company quite often. The gentleman who Frank had spoken to, his name is Joe Tetro. He's the area salesperson. Joe basically tells us that the gas company has the jurisdiction to put the gas line wherever you want on the property, as long as it's on your property. There is no rules and regulation where it has to be, how far from the line it was. Gail also spoke to the sales director, Chris Eckler, at the time around December 5th, give or take a couple days, and Chris basically told her the same thing, that there is no requirements. That's why the regulations I gave you, and that's why the gas company really hasn't given me a letter yet, because they said there is no regulations. You could put it's your property. You could put it wherever you want. And they basically stated to me this way: if you have a house that's 3 feet off the property line, and we have a regulation that you cannot put your gas line 3 feet off the property line or 5 feet off, where are you going to put your gas line? He goes, as long as it's on your property, you can put it on it. Just like anything else, a fence, a shed, or anything. We have no regulations in terms of where that gas line goes in relation to the property line. He says, and that was it. So I just wanted to extend on that. And the new sales director, who is Chris Moore, who I had spoke to, basically said the same thing. I had asked them for a letter, basically just saying, can you tell us what the regulations are? It's a bureaucracy of an institution, and they're still working on it. So I just wanted to extend that a little more, because the way they had presented it before, Frank and Gail, was that 3 feet is the law. It's not.
Thank you. Any other comments? Attorney Lynch? Okay. At this time, I'd like to ask if anyone who's spoken before that wants to address any of the comments that were just made has that opportunity to do that now. So if anyone would like to do that, yes, sir. If you could state your name again, please.
Yeah, it's John Pagliano, 325 Meadowside. So after this long meeting and conversation, now we're getting no trees, according to Mr. Lynch? Now we have no privacy? We're going to have a fence and no trees because there's not enough room? When this plan was set up, we were promised that we were going to get privacy. We were told there was going to be privacy trees. Well, they better make room because there's no privacy on that whole side now. I'm looking at the back of 4 buildings. And Mr. Lynch is saying now, I mean, even Buddy didn't say no. He didn't say anything. He didn't make any comment. But Mr. Lynch is saying now there's no room for any trees? This is getting a little ridiculous. This is a he say, she say thing, okay? There's got to be some privacy trees put there, some big ones. You look at the property, see if you'd like to live there, okay? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward and if you could state your name again, please.
Hi, Frank Janice, 331 Meadowside. Couple quick things. The gas line recommendation is 3 to 5 feet on all properties. I don't know who exactly Mr. Fields got his answers from, but as I told you from Joe Tetro, as the senator's office called and found out, it's anywhere from 3 to 5 feet, minimum 18 inches digging on each side. I think one of the problems here, I think my wife kind of reached it, is nobody's been monitoring this. Nobody's come out. I couldn't tell you how many times I've been to Mr. Sulkus' office asking him to come out, saying what's going on, asking for his help. I've gotten the same reply over and over. I won't come out until it's done. Once it's done, if something's wrong, we'll either have him fix it or you're going to have to get a lawyer and take care of it. I don't see where this comes to a legal matter on the homeowners around it. If the department monitored this as they should, I don't think we would have half these issues. I know each one of you get a packet before you come to these meetings. You know what's going on. You read it, you go through it. Wouldn't it be nice for you to have up-to-date information? I know it would be for us. I know it would be nice to, this is going on. Hey, Mr. Sulkus, what's going to happen here? They're doing this. It's on our property. What can we do? Instead of getting an answer, I'm not coming out to the end. I'll deal with it then. How about, yeah, you know what? Let us come out there. Let us check it. We have to monitor it. I would hope in the future that that department does that, because unlike you, you all volunteer your time. You come out after work, you're tired, but you still take those packets, you still read them. You still come here to help protect us, the people of Milford who live here. I just get angry sometimes thinking that Mr. Sulkus doesn't have that same in him, because his job that we pay him for is to protect us as homeowners, as taxpayers. We all deserve that right. We all live here in Milford. And I believe if people would have monitored this through the whole process, me, Buddy, the rest of the people here, yourselves wouldn't be here right now. And the last thing is, he's talking about doing the driveway and the apron and all that. I would kind of like to know when a completion time on the repairs would be. Is it going to be now? Is it going to be down the road? Is it going to be part of the bonding that they have to make sure these things get done? Or is it going to get pushed down a year from now or whenever they decide to do it? And their engineer touched on the fact that they want to better the drainage and that the curtain drain is for a purpose. And I fully understand that, and I appreciate it. However, with the difference in height and elevation between 1 and 4 feet right now, we're still going to get that runoff. The original plan stayed no more than a 1 foot elevation. I believe they should stick to that. I believe the town should hold their feet to that. That's what that's what you signed off on. That's what Mr. Sulkis's office signed off on, Mr. Griffith, not on changing it now to leave it where it is and just putting a curtain drain in. Thank you for your time again. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? If you could state your name again, please.
Denise Doucette-Janice. I just want to say, echo my husband, but also to say there's a lot of frustration. Certainly, we don't want to place blame in any one place, and that's not what we're trying to do. I think it really is a lack of communication between everybody from the city offices to the board to the developer to the attorney. It's just people not talking to each other. And I know, maybe Mr. Lynn, that it may have been hard to be in a conference room. I don't know. Maybe we would have needed police station outside your door. I don't know. But I think that there's got to be a better way for us to work together as a community to try to make these, as Buddy said, we're all neighbors. We all live here. We all have to exist here. And I think that that's really, the perspective that we should take when looking at these issues. We're just concerned with our property, right? I mean, we'd like it to be the way it was before. We'd like to make sure that there's no further damage that's ongoing. So if this drainage plan gets put in and it doesn't work, then what do we do? Like, what is I just think we need help to understand how we're supposed to move forward, how we're supposed to, to get along with this plan, I guess is the best way to say it. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Seeing none, Attorney Lynch, I believe you have a chance to rebut anything that was said. I think we're all set. Okay, thank you. Before we close the public hearing, is there any other questions from the board to Attorney Lynch or Mr. Fields or the engineer? Yes, Mr. Quish first.
Actually, I'd like to see if we can get Mr. Griffith to answer a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So correct me if I'm wrong, it's the building department would go out and they would look at if the structure is built according to the approved plans.
Correct.
So whether it's the window type, the shingle type, the insulation, the electrical work, the site work, it's the building department's responsibility to ensure that what is approved in the building permit is built according to the approved plans.
In general, the building department specifically is to go out there and have access to the approved set of construction documents. That includes the site drawings.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
In general, the building department, when they go out on any inspection, is to have access to the approved construction documents that are to be out there on the site. That would include the site drawings as well as all the architectural drawings. However, the building department is called out there specifically to conduct inspections of the insulation, of the sheetrock, of the electrical work, what have you. They're not going out there specifically to look for changes in the plan.
But
it's incumbent on the applicant to come back and inform us of changes that they've done to the drawings.
So is there a site inspection that's
As
part of
Mr.
the
Selk
process?
has indicated, the site inspection is generated at the end of the project. So when the work is complete, we receive as-built drawings, which we are able to compare against the approved construction, the approved site drawings.
Would they show the issue at hand here, where there's a different grade elevation in the back of the property next to the driveway, where it was where what we approved and what the city permitted was, again, I'm quoting, I don't have the drawings in front of me, but a no more than 1 foot delta. And would somebody go shoot a grade to see if that's actually been built that way? Or is it incumbent on the neighbor or someone else to say, I think it's wrong, would you go out and verify that it was built according to plans? And then again, a follow-up from there is if it's not, then it's incumbent upon the building department to have it changed to meet what was approved and what was permitted prior to any final approval.
I think I got you. At the conclusion of construction, when the applicant is making application for certificate of occupancy, they are to submit as-built drawings, including as-built site drawings. A well-prepared set of as-built site drawings would cloud any changes that were made. And so again, the as-built drawings are surveys that a surveyor is going out and doing at the end of construction. In reality, no, we don't see all of these changes picked up on the site drawings.
So in a circumstance where we have testimony that it's not built according to the permitted and approved plans, whose responsibility or jurisdiction is it to enforce compliance with the permitted drawings?
I think that's why we're here tonight. I mean, very honestly, Mr. Janice contacted our office and said, is what they're doing out there in accordance with the approved documents? We went out there and conducted numerous inspections, reviewed it, contacted the permit holder, Mr. Field, and let him know that any changes to your site drawings are going to be brought back in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the Planning and Zoning Commission would review it and determine whether it's a public hearing or not.
Yeah, but I think we're missing something. I think that in the same case is that if you found a deficiency or inconsistency with permitted and approved plans, that it's not up to us to do this. It's up to you to do this. So with the building department to say, sorry, your elevation has changed, put it to where the building permit and the approved drawings have it. Simple. Doesn't have to come in front of us.
Our regulations are written. I mean, again, changes are made during the course of construction, for better or for worse, or whatever prompted those changes. Changes do get made. The way our regulations are written, that if the approvals were given to this project through special permit, it's brought back in front of this board.
Thank you for the clarity.
Other questions? Yes, Mr. Lutz.
Can I follow up with that comment to Mr. Quish? Because I think there's some misconception here. There's no drains installed right now. It's not like they installed drains.
No, that wasn't my question.
Okay.
It was the grade elevation that I'm talking about.
And that's why...
And I understand everything
right,
else.
okay. I just want to make sure that there wasn't some misunderstanding that they went ahead and put in a whole drainage system that is now at a...
Nope, that's not what I was talking about.
Okay.
Thank you.
The whole application that we brought to you was to change the drainage, and we
Just the grade in the back was the only issue I had.
Okay, gotcha.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lutz.
Yeah, also for Mr. Griffith, okay? Have we verified that the grading on the plans is not the grading in reality?
We rely on the submission by the as-built drawings.
And what do they suggest?
Well, the drawings that are submitted now are showing what presumably is built. Am I answering your question?
No.
Okay.
In other words, the last time we heard this, I asked the same question. Does the grading agree with or comply with what the original plans called for that were approved? Does it or doesn't it?
I believe these drawings that are in front of you tonight show a change in grading.
A change in grade. Okay, there has been a change.
From what was originally approved.
Okay, so there was a change in grade, and that...
Excuse me, yeah, I just want to make sure.
Yeah?
I'm just going to take a look at it. What's on this, thanks, Joe. What's on this plan here reflects what's on the site now. And what's proposed for that little 10-foot swath is a swale. But based on, what we have now, it doesn't look like a swale will cut it. So therefore, Mr. Field wants to go forward with the trench drain. That's the whole reason why this is the best recommendation and remedy for, this drainage coming off the property line. So what's here in front of you, just to answer your question, Mr. Lutz, the grading on this plan, I shot myself in the field. And the slopes that are shown on this plan reflect what's here now, what's on the grade now. And we're showing but just to clarify that, since this was when we had in mind of the swales, because the city engineer said that that's what was originally approved on the original Codispoti plans. He wanted to maintain that swale. So we did our best to do that, but that just wasn't cutting it. So that's why we're coming before you tonight in order to correct that and remedy that even further by installing the infiltration trench along that property line.
All right, so in other words, there has been a change. What was approved in the original plans was not what exists.
So what was on the initial plans the first time around, the grading on the proposed grading, the existing and proposed grading, the existing grading wasn't perfectly reflected on what was at the site, because that grading was lifted off like I think it was like a GIS contours.
All right, let me word it differently.
Okay.
Was the plan that was approved by this board and the grading that was approved by this board, is that what exists on the site now?
Initially, like the first time around?
Whenever it was only approved once. In other words, when it was approved, what exists?
What can I speak to is to my plans here, right in front, right before you, which is the last submission set, and the grading that's on that plan is what's on the site now.
But does that agree with what was originally approved?
I want to say yes, because what we're trying to show is the swale that's right behind the buildings, which is on the original set.
Mr. Griffith, how do we verify this? How do we verify this? All right, does the grading, is it what was approved by this board?
At this point, you can't verify what was shown as the original grading and what was shown as the proposed grading. What we're able to verify is what's there now and what they're proposing to do. And again, what you're proposing to do is the swale, right? Or the subsurface drainage. I'm sorry, yes. Right. But when any engineer comes before this board and seals and certifies the drawings as being accurate, we do accept them.
I have a question, quick question anyway, is just, again, maybe I'm missing it, but I do construction as well, and we have a site plan and it shows proposed elevations on that approved plan that goes to planning and zoning for approval. I guess the question are those the elevations that were held, the proposed on the one that was approved as part of the planning and zoning package originally?
And so say it again,
Well, the developer submitted a plan for approval.
Correct.
It had proposed elevations on it.
Right.
Are those the elevations that exist right now?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Yes.
Question about the gas line. Yeah, not for you, Joe, for anyone who wants to answer. Is that going to be in the way of the curtain drain? The curtain drain as proposed is going to be somewhere at the property line? And that's pretty much what we're being told the gas line is going.
Yeah, well, during the installation of the trench drain, we're going to have to excavate, 18 to 24 inches, something like that, in the ground. And if there's utilities in the way, then we're going to have to move it over.
So
The
there
trench
is-
drain itself, what I'm saying.
So where is the gas line in relation to the proposed?
We don't know. There's no as-built of it. That's not a requirement from the town. The utility
Well,
as-built.
the gas line was put in fairly recently, and people have experience. They saw the trench.
As a surveyor, I can only speak to as-built, and, I can tell you the location of anything as long as it's actually shot in the field. So utility lines, like I said, other than the drainage, we actually shot the drainage in the parking lot. But other than that, the utilities are not.
No, I'm just talking about the back, the new French
I
drain.
understand,
curtain
and
drain.
utility as-built are not required for as-built requirements.
So you'll say if the construction of that drain is blocked by the gas line, you'll move the gas line. Is that what I'm hearing?
Okay, so also, what he just said, based on his, on the installation, it's 4 feet below grade.
Okay,
So
that's
we have
that's
plenty.
the simple answer.
Right, so
It's
we have.
not in the way.
Yeah, so it's,
Okay.
vertically, it's not in the way, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Are there other questions from the board? Yes, Mr. Lutz.
Is the gas company exempt from our zoning approvals, our approvals or site plans?
I don't want to oversimplify, but yes.
Thank you. Are there other questions? Yes, sir, Mr. Nichols.
Yeah, on this curtain drain, for the engineer, what's the frost line in Connecticut and Milford at this time of the year?
Frost line's always 42 inches below grade.
So you're going to put this 24 inches so it's going to freeze?
The, actually, most drainage is within that. It's usually less than 42 inches. Most catch basins in the road are like 3 to 4 feet below grade. So
What are
that's
the-
how they're all designed.
What are
And
they in the street?
I don't know. I didn't check this particular street, what the actual drainage lines, how deep they are, but they're usually very shallow. Within 4 feet, usually they're at the, but sometimes they're even more shallow than that.
A curtain drain is no good if it's going to freeze and water is just going to flow over the top of it. You got to get below the frost line, and it's got to be kept open so water can go through it.
Well, there's no water that's going to be running over anything if it were below freezing. There's no rain, in other words. If the temperature's below freezing, how is there going to be rain?
If the curtain drain is frozen, what good is that going to do?
Well, what we're trying to say is everything's going to be frozen. We're going to have snow. So as it all melts, as it all thaws out, it'll flow.
Out in the street, it doesn't freeze.
Excuse me?
It flows. It flows in the middle of winter.
Correct. Usually because it's right around the 4 feet below grade.
You have a situation there that this has got to continue to flow. You can't put it 24 inches. You got to go get some depth in there, and the water has got to flow.
I understand. We can put it below that, but as Buddy said, we have 4 feet to play with, so we're probably going to be right over the gas line, if the gas line is right there.
If I wanted gas into my property, and I call the gas company, they're not going to tell me where they're going to put the gas line, or I'll tell them I don't need your goddamn gas.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there other questions?
I guess my question is more for us, internal to the board. What remedies do we have when a project is built not to spec?
Mr. Sulkus?
As long as the project meets building code and engineering standards, this is an 830G project. It's not subject to our regulations. Anything that he's doing he's doing because he's worked something out with the neighborhood and he's presented it to you. But in the end, this is an exempt project.
Yes, if we could just, yes, Mr. Wish.
Well, you know, that's a statement that's, I think, misleading in a sense, because we're not talking about approval or not approving or not approving a development, which is where 830G comes in. 830G can't tell us that we cannot have sprinklers in a building. So there's certain things, building codes, and compliance with, you know, good practice and building standards. So I think as Mr. Griffin said, we do have the remedy here in terms of what we propose and vote on. So I actually tonight we are the remedy. So we can approve it. We can approve it with conditions. We can make a motion and talk it out and vote on it. You know, so whatever anyone feels strongly about.
Thank you. Are there other questions? Mr. Lutz?
Just a comment. Perhaps we need some guidance here by the city attorney.
All right, thank you. Before that, I'd like to entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Would that be something that I could? I don't need a motion to do that. Okay, so at this time, we'll close the public hearing. So now we're on to, does anyone on the board want to make a motion in regards to this amendment? Yes, Mr. Dolan.
I think it would probably be a good idea if we don't take any action tonight. I know we got some new materials. There was a lot of people that came up to talk. I'd like to take a couple weeks to digest it all, perhaps, and then come in fresh, and we can all discuss what we think the best course of action is, and ask any more questions that we might have of Mr. Sulkus, and then make any motions.
Is there agreement?
I would suggest that I agree with my colleague says, but I would also like to get some guidance from the city attorney.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mr. Dolan.
I had no problem getting guidance from the city attorney's office as well.
Yes, Mr. Sutton.
I'm just curious as to what we are asking the city attorney.
Mr. Lutz, do you have in particular, are you looking just for general guidance, or is there specific questions?
Well, when someone says that the board is the remedy, okay, I don't know what that means. I don't know if we can. In this case, you know, my sense is, okay, is that we should ask the contractor to bring this into compliance from what it was originally, you know, approved. But I'm not sure if we have that right to do that.
Okay. So where we're at right now, we're not going to take any action on this tonight. The idea is that we'll discuss this in 2 weeks, correct, Mr. Dolan, or next meeting?
That's my proposal. I mean, if anybody feels strongly against it.
I think everyone was in agreement with that suggestion. And Mr. Sulkus, would it be possible to have input from the city attorney?
You need to articulate a question.
Mr. Lutz, do you have a particular question?
Yeah, my question is, what are the remedies for an 803, for an affordable housing complex like this that was not built to specs? What is it that we can do to rectify this?
Mr. Sulkus?
Okay, we have a question.
All right. Thank you.
I also have a question. I don't know if Mr. Sulkus can answer this now, or if or maybe gets answered at the next meeting, or I don't think it would be a question for the city attorneys. What would happen? What would the project end up looking like if we just flat out denied their amendment?
I can't speculate. Again, it's an 830G project. They've come to you with some amendments. You're turning down the amendments. I'm assuming if they disagree with anything the board comes up with, they can follow whatever legal path they're entitled to.
Is the burden for any amendments brought to an 830G the same as if it was brought originally for the original application, the health, safety, whatever?
You bet.
All right, thank you. Any further comments on this item? Yes, Mr. Quish.
I would just ask Mr. Sulkus to add that, the question he just answered, you bet, ask that of the city attorney as well, if the same standard applies to amendments as it does to the original, so we can get counsel from city attorney on that question, as well as the one that Mr. Lutz put forth.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Dolan.
I have one maybe more question that can go to this city attorney's office. If the motion is denied and the grading stays the same, 4 feet above grade or whatever it's at, if he has an opinion as to whether that would pose a safety risk that might be enough to overcome the 830G burdens that we know it has, perhaps like with snow melting and then going over driveway, I don't know if that would qualify, or how a judge might look at that issue on appeal.
Any further comments? Yes, Mr. Moore.
Will we have to pursue any other departments in this case, like with the health department or sewer department in regards to the drainage or anything like that?
The testimony we heard was that the latest curtain drain plan would be reviewed and ultimately would have to be approved by the city engineer.
Other comments on this item? Seeing none, we'll move on to liaison reports. Is there any liaison reports tonight? Seeing none, Mr. Grant, the Regulation Subcommittee.
Yeah, the Regulation Subcommittee has 2 suggestions to pass to the board this evening. We recommend that the 2 following amendments to the zoning regulations be forwarded to the different city and state departments that would need to review it. The first one is section 5.8.13.1, residential construction. We're proposing that an additional wording be added to the zoning regulation to basically include a FEMA elevation support report be submitted to the building department to verify that the foundation and grading is what is originally proposed and meets the FEMA requirements. The second one is section 5.8.2, zoning applications. It's to basically the FEMA changes what they call panels. Basically FEMA goes through the coastline, and from time to time they adjust different flooded zones, the area, how far in from the coast it is, or how closer it gets, whatever. The FEMA is going to readjust the Connecticut line here in Milford to change some of the zones. And in response to that, we need to change our zoning regulation to include those new panels so that we conform to the flood management requirements and the insurance studies that are done. So those are the 2 items that we are recommending that get sent to the areas around. One is, like I said, to update the zoning panels for the flood zones, and the second thing is to add in receiving a FEMA elevation certificate at the beginning of a job.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Do we need a motion on that? We do. Is there any questions for Mr. Grant on either of these regulations? Okay. Is there a motion? Yes, Mr. Question.
I'd move to send this out to the relevant agencies.
Second? Second. Mr. Sutton? Any questions, comments on the motion? All in favor? Any against? All right, motion passes. Next item is the approval of the minutes for the 2/21/2017 meeting. I'd entertain a motion. Yes, Mr. Moore.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from 2/21/2017.
Is there a second? Mr. Sutton. All in favor? Against? Very good, thank you. Next is the chair's report. I have no report right now. Staff report, Mr. Solkis.
None this evening.
Okay, make a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second? Okay. Thank you very much.